Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I have been loving replying to all your messages, and actually a lot of your comments I'm starting to use as research almost for some really interesting episodes I've got coming up. I'm looking to do a couple of exposés in Singapore about certain aspects of Singaporean life, and I've been really interested. If I've reached out to you and asked you whether you could drop me a text message or an email about something or other, please do. I would love to hear back from you, or just let me know if you are unable to help out. That's totally fine as well, but it'd be great to be able to hear from you anyway. Today I thought I would just share with you some of the things that I've been reading, because they really contribute to my mind and how I think about life and things like that, and they also contribute to, I guess, things that I've got going on and plans that are coming up. So I'm really excited to show you the first book, which I've just finished. Just to give you a little bit of background, I've started writing a new book. Those of you who don't know, I'm an author. I should have grabbed my book to show you, but it's in the other room. It's okay. It's here. And it's called The Local Immigrant. A lot of people have been kind of just asking me whether I'm writing a new publication, whether I'm going to be writing another book. And I think what was difficult is that because I never really intended on writing a book per se, I know it kind of sounds funny, but it was very personal, and I really enjoyed writing that personal journey rather than the kind of creative thing. It was hard to be able to decide whether I was what I'd write, but I got really inspired. Some of you might know we lost my grandfather in May this year, and the subsequent conversations and time I spent with Grandma has really inspired me to be able to write their story about, they're both absolutely extraordinary Singaporeans, and I am going to write a book that interlaces their lives, their non-fiction lives obviously, with a little bit of fiction from my mind, and so I can pull together and make the different times where through which they lived, both born in the 1920s, and how that and I'll try to make each era come to life. Part of that was this whole I decided to look for a few books that were written of the time, 1930s, and there was one book that was published in 1934 called The Lights of Singapore. It's here. The Lights of Singapore. It is absolutely amazing. It was written in 1934. This one, as you can see here along the spine, this is one of the things I think is just beautiful about it, is super old. It's not quite a first edition, it's a third edition. This one was printed in 1937. What I found absolutely beautiful about it is that there's a little inscription, not from the author unfortunately, but an inscription nonetheless, and it was dated in 1937. This book was written by Roland Braddell. If you think you know the name Braddell because of a little suburby town or MRT station in Singapore, you're right. Singapore, that one was named after this guy's grandfather, and in the 1920s all these different books have been written about Singapore, and none of them were really very nice. I mean, a lot of the educated people in Singapore at the time were all from the West, were all from Britain and Europe, and they wrote about Singapore in a really negative light. They talked about the brothels being kind of like, and the opium being like the things that kind of rule the way here, and they talked about the weather being bad for your health. I know I don't sound very well, I haven't been that well, but it's not because of the weather. So this guy, Roland Braddell, was born here, and he decided that he was going to write a book about Singapore of the time from a local point of view, someone who was born here, who grew up here, who loves it here. And he lived in the Katong area, and there's some beautiful descriptive writing about Singapore in the 1930s, and it's just beautiful. Actually, there's this wonderful little section, page 92, I think. Let me check it out. And it's absolutely beautiful because it's got all this wonderful descriptive writing, and it goes like this. There's one splendid drive around the island which I call the Grand Tour, and which should be taken either before breakfast when the sun is pushing away the early mists and lighting them with all the colours of mother of pearl, or else in the evening during the glories of the sinking sun. Let me describe it to you. And then he goes on to describe it to you. This wonderfully has given me a beautiful idea of what Singapore was like in the 1930s, but also gave me this wonderful idea for a video that we're either going to do on this channel or on the Wanderlust channel, those of you who are into Wanderlust, with a local celebrity. I won't tell you who it is, you can check it out when we finish it. We're actually going to follow Roland Braddell's route that he called the Grand Tour of Singapore, and we're going to see whether what's still the same. We're going to see whether things have changed, and yeah, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun episode to create. So that's the first book I've been reading. I've been reading 4 books lately. I'm usually a 1-book reader, and I take quite a long time to process all the books, but these 4 are really, really different books altogether, so I'm just going to go through all of these with you. Okay, so the first one was The Lights of Singapore, wonderful book. The next one I've been reading, and I'm probably about halfway through now, is called Safe Passage. This is a really, really interesting book, largely from an education point of view, those of you who know I'm a teacher, and it talks about in the international school world where children are saying goodbye to friends and sending them off, and there's a time where they have to mourn the loss of their friends, and there's grief, and there's pain, and it's about how to firstly how people can be affected by all that mobility, but also how they can deal with it as well. And I think for me, at the end of last year, those of you who followed us on Wanderlust, or those of you who are close friends of ours, our friend Sam moved off to Korea. He's actually in Singapore at the moment for another less than, I don't know how many hours, another 10 hours, yeah. And so I've really missed him, and I know my son, his class teacher last year left, and he was really, really upset about that, and a couple other friends who'd moved abroad, and obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I lost my grandfather earlier this year, and I was really, really interested in the whole idea of grief, the idea of mobility within an international school world, and I wanted to be able to deal with that well. We're very new to the international school world, having only been in it for about 2.5 years, and so we're starting to feel that fluidity, and I want to be able to support my kids really well too, as well as myself. That whole situation made me way sadder than I thought it would. So Safe Passage by Douglas W. Ota is a really fantastic read. I'm really, really enjoying that, looking forward to getting through it. There's another book that I am also about halfway through. Oh, not even halfway through. What's that? 123 pages through out of 346. I'm nearly halfway through. And this is called Talking to Strangers. Okay, Talking to Strangers is a very, very funny book to read on the MRT. When your wife is taking photos of you next to a stranger reading Talking to Strangers. This is a very interesting book. One of my colleagues recommended it to me. She said, you'd really enjoy this book, John T. It might be a bit emotional for you, but you will love it. And there's a few bits that are a bit heart-wrenching, but it's the subheading is What We Should Know About the People We Don't Know, by Malcolm Gladwell. And he talks about all these situations where you are, well, where I'm at the moment. It hasn't actually explained how we can get better at talking to strangers. It kind of highlights the issues where, in particular, these are situations where people don't know the other person very well, and them not knowing them hasn't necessarily led to a discovery where, like, you know, I didn't know my wife very well when we first got together, and the more I got to know her, I thought, wow, this is amazing. It's actually the opposite of that. It's like when you get to know someone and you think, oh, I wish I knew that about them. And they talk about a situation where there was a race a race situation in the US where a white police officer pulled over a black lady driver, and that whole thing, the whole situation was terrible and fell apart. It also talked about a situation where there was a CIA worker who was a spy for Cuba, and I think that whole thing, they always, when they spoke to her, they always assumed the best of her, which was great, but then there was a lot that they didn't know. So I'm slowly working stuff out, slowly. I can't say I'm definite where the book's going at the moment, but I like the fact that it's all factual, and it shares loads of, I guess you could call them case studies of what's happened in the past, and I find it very interesting. I think you've probably noticed from this channel, I find people are incredibly interesting, and if this can help me to understand people better, then that would be great. it's slightly faded around the edges. This is from a really cool free library at school where we've just got this a shelf in the English department, obviously the English department, and we can just switch books out. So yeah, I'm going to finish that one. The final book that I'm going to share with you today, I'm really excited about. I literally have only had a little flick through of it. I haven't yet really properly started reading it. It is written and illustrated by a friend of mine called Jeff Schmidt, who is a friend of ours from the UK. Very, very sadly, actually no, I don't want to use that word, but very interestingly, he had a heart attack, a very sudden heart attack, which put him in hospital for a really long time. We were very worried because we were over here and we hadn't seen him for a little while. And he is a healthy guy, and there was a very, very unexpected heart attack. So while he was in hospital, he started doing illustrations and putting on his Instagram. They were incredible. And long story short, it became this book called Heart Attack. Okay, here it is. And I'm really looking forward to reading it. If I can just open it a little bit and show you some of his incredible artwork. There you go. I mean, isn't that just beautiful? Okay, so there's writing, there's the whole story. He is a super inspiring guy. I will never forget a breakfast we had round at their place, and the stories he would tell and the way that he shared them. I think this is going to be a great book to read. I haven't yet got stuck into it, but I'm going to very, very soon. I've just finished The Lights of Singapore, and now this is my next one to start, and I'm working through the other two slowly. Heart Attack, Finding Hope, Joy and Inspiration Through Adversity. If you want to buy this book, I bought it from Amazon Singapore, Amazon.sg, and it arrived within a week, which was amazing. So I was really, really excited about that, looking forward to that. So there you go. 4 books, all very, very different, and all that I'm reading at the moment. Please feel free to make comments about what I'm reading, the things that you might find interesting about them. Maybe you've read these books as well and you'd like to share some thoughts about them too. I think I'll do this every now and again when I'm in the middle of some other books. I've actually got one on the bed that I've been eyeing up. It's been sat on the side for a couple of weeks now. I'm really looking forward to starting that one. My principal, the boss at work, she's got another book that she wants me to read, which was awesome. I'll tell you about that when the time comes. 1, 2, yeah. So there you go. I'm just looking at the bedside table. No, there isn't another book yet. There's definitely 2 that I'm going to start real soon. Maybe I'll talk about Heart Attack after I've read it as well, so that you know a little bit more about that too. But I don't know. Hopefully you find this interesting. I have thought about sharing this with you for a little while, and I'm excited to share it with you. And I hope that it was helpful and enjoyable. And so, just in review, The Lights of Singapore, written in 1934 by Roland Bradel. This is a very rare copy, okay? What I forgot to mention is that in the Singapore Library they have one of the first editions, and there aren't many of these around anymore. As you can see, it's just beautiful. In fact, there's a story around how I got hold of this. I'll tell you another time. That's the first one. Then I told you a bit about Safe Passage. Safe Passage, okay. That's a great book. Talking to Strangers, really, really enjoying that. And finally, Heart Attack. So these are the 4 books. There you go. I hope that was good. We'll catch you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.